I've been a paranormal investigator for 12 years, and I can tell you, most hauntings are drafty windows and overactive imaginations. But the Ashwood estate case? That one changed how I look at mirrors. October 29th, 2021. I got a call from a guy named Curtis Wasson, voice tight with something between confusion and fear. He and 7 friends had rented the Ashwood estate outside Portland for a weekend Halloween party. Old Victorian, 3 stories, the kind of place that looks dramatic in photos but smells like mildew and old carpet when you actually walk through it. "We need someone to look at something," Curtis said. "Something's not right with the pictures." I drove out there on Halloween morning. The house sat at the end of a gravel drive, surrounded by Douglas firs that made the whole property feel darker than it should. Paint peeling, wraparound porch sagging in the middle. The rental listing probably called it historic charm. Curtis met me at the door, mid-30s, wearing yesterday's clothes, eyes red-shot. Behind him, I could see red plastic cups scattered across hardwood floors, fake cobwebs still hanging from the chandelier. "Thanks for coming," he said. "I know, this sounds insane." His friend Becca was in the kitchen making coffee with shaking hands. 2 others, Malik and Stephanie, sat at the dining table, not talking, just staring at their phones. The kind of quiet that settles over people after something's knocked their world sideways. "Walk me through it," I said. Curtis rubbed his face. Party started around 8 p.m., about 20 people total. Friends, some coworkers. Stephanie's sister flew in from Denver. Normal Halloween party, you know? Music, drinks, stupid costumes. Around 10:30, Becca interrupted, people started mentioning this woman. "What woman?" "That's the thing. Nobody knew her." Becca's coffee cup rattled against the saucer. "I was in the kitchen refilling the punch bowl when Stephanie's sister asked me who invited the woman in white. I said I didn't know what she meant. She said there was a woman in a white dress, not even a costume, just this plain white dress walking down the second-floor hallway." Malik spoke up, voice flat. "I saw her too, around 11. I was heading upstairs to use the bathroom, and she was at the end of the hall, just standing there, facing the wall." The hairs on my arm stood up. "Facing the wall?" "Yeah." I called out, asked if she was okay. She didn't move, didn't turn around, so I just used the downstairs bathroom instead. "Did anyone else see her?" Curtis nodded slowly. 5 different people mentioned her throughout the night. Amy saw her on the staircase. Derek saw her in the library doorway. My girlfriend Natasha said she walked past her in the upstairs hallway, and the woman was ice cold, like standing next to an open freezer. "But here's the thing," Becca said, leaning forward. "We're going through the pictures this morning, trying to figure out who she was, and—" She pulled out her phone and started swiping. "Look." The first photo showed the main party room, people in costumes, laughing, holding drinks. Curtis was in a vampire cape. Stephanie wore cat ears. Normal party shot. Except in the mirror above the fireplace, there was someone else. A woman in a white dress, long dark hair, face turned slightly away from the camera. She wasn't in the room, just in the reflection. Could be a trick of light, but my mouth had gone dry. Becca swiped to another photo, different room, different angle, a group shot of 4 friends in the dining room, and there, in the hutch's glass door, the same figure, white dress, dark hair, watching. "There's 12 photos with her in them," Curtis said quietly. "All reflections, mirrors, windows, the glass and picture frames. She's never actually in the room, just reflected." I spent the next hour examining their phones, downloading every image. The woman appeared in reflections throughout the house, but the angles didn't make sense. In one photo, she was reflected in a hallway mirror, but the position suggested she'd be inside a wall. In another, she appeared in a darkened window, but she was facing inward, like she was outside looking in, except they were on the second floor. Did you research this house before renting? No, Stephanie said. Just found it on that vacation rental site. It was cheap. I pulled out my laptop and started digging. The Ashwood Estate, built in 1904, passed through 4 families before being sold to a property management company in 2019. Then I found the obituary. Lorraine Ashwood died in the house February 2018, 73 years old. The photo was small, grainy, from a local newspaper. I zoomed in. My stomach dropped. Dark hair, even in old age, sharp cheekbones, the same tilt to her head. "I need you to see this," I said. They gathered around my laptop. I pulled up the photo from the obituary next to one of Becca's party pictures, the one where the woman appeared in the mirror. The face was identical. "No," Malik whispered. "No, that's not—" "She died in this house," I said. "Heart attack. She was alone. They found her 3 days later when her sister couldn't reach her." The room went silent, except for the old house settling around us, wood groaning in the walls. "Where did they find her?" Curtis asked, voice barely audible. I scrolled through the article. "Second floor, master bedroom." Stephanie made a small sound. "That's where Malik saw her. End of that hallway." I went upstairs with them. The hallway was narrow, wallpaper yellowing and peeling. 4 doors branched off, 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. The master was at the end. The door was closed. Curtis reached for the handle, then stopped. "I don't want to." "I'll do it," I said. The room was cold, not drafty window cold, the kind of cold that settles in your lungs. A 4-poster bed sat against the far wall, stripped to the mattress, and directly across from it a full-length mirror in an ornate frame. I approached the mirror slowly. My reflection looked back, tired, uneasy, just me. Then Becca gasped behind me, "Check your phone." I pulled it out and opened the camera, pointing it at the mirror. In the screen, in the reflection, standing just behind my right shoulder, the woman in white. I spun around. Nothing, just the empty room. But on my phone screen, she remained in the mirror, motionless, face turned slightly away, waiting. I took the photo, backed out of the room. We all went downstairs without speaking. I've been back to Ashwood Estate twice since then, with equipment, with colleagues. We've never captured anything definitive on our instruments. No EVP, no temperature anomalies that can be explained. The house is just a house. But I have that photo, and if you look closely at the woman's face in the mirror, at what should be her eyes, they're not looking away from the camera. They're looking directly at where I was standing. The rental listing is still active, different name now. They call it the Historic Portland Manor, 30% off during winter months. I called Curtis last week to follow up. He told me something he hadn't mentioned before. The morning after the party, when they were packing up to leave, Natasha went to get something from the master bedroom. The door they'd closed was open, and the full-length mirror was turned around, facing the wall. I've been a detective with the county sheriff's department for 17 years. I've worked homicides, missing persons, domestic disputes that went sideways. But there's one call from Halloween night 1994 that still sits differently in my memory. Not because of what happened, though that was bad enough, but because of how close it came to being so much worse. The call came in at 9:47 p.m. Dispatch said a babysitter needed assistance at 4158 Maple Ridge Drive. Possible prowler. I was 3 blocks away when I got it, so I radioed that I'd take it. My partner, Officer Greg Dalton, was right behind me. When we pulled up, the house looked normal. 2-story colonial, jack-o'-lanterns on the porch, their candles burned down to nubs. Orange string lights in the windows. I could see the television flickering through the front curtains. Nothing that screamed emergency. The girl who opened the door was 16. Her name was Brooke Stillman. blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, mascara smudged under her eyes like she'd been crying. She was trying to hold it together, but her hands were shaking when she pushed the door open wider. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was steady, but barely. "I didn't know if I was being paranoid." "You did the right thing calling," I told her. "Tell me what happened." She led us into the living room. The TV was still on, some cartoon special playing for the kids, but the volume was way down. There were candy wrappers on the coffee table, a half-empty bowl of popcorn. "The calls started around 8:30, Brooke said, sitting on the edge of the couch, "right after Mr. and Mrs. Pruitt left for their party. At first, I thought it was just kids messing around, because it's Halloween." "What did the caller say?" Greg asked, pulling out his notepad. "Nothing. That's the thing." She wrapped her arms around herself. "He'd just breathe, heavy breathing, like he'd been running. Then he'd hang up." I'd heard about pranks like this before, usually harmless, but something about the way she was sitting, the way her eyes kept darting to the staircase, told me she didn't think it was harmless. "How many times did he call?" I asked. 4 times, maybe 5. She swallowed hard. "The last one was different. I could hear, I don't know how to describe it, like fabric rustling. And then he breathed real close to the phone and said, 'Have you checked on the children?'" The air in that room changed. Greg looked at me and I could see the same thought crossing his face. "Where are the children now?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Upstairs, asleep. I checked on them after the last call and they were fine." Her voice cracked. "That's when I called you guys. Because why would he ask that? Why would he say it like that?" I stood up. "Which rooms?" "Both in the room at the top of the stairs, Amy and Lucas. They're 6 and 4. Greg moved toward the base of the staircase. I radioed dispatch and asked them to trace the incoming calls to this number. Then I turned back to Brooke. "Did you lock all the doors when the Pruitts left?" "Yes, front and back. I even checked the garage door." A pause, and her face went pale. Oh no, I didn't check the basement door. There's one that leads outside from the basement, and I held up a hand. "It's okay. Stay here with Officer Dalton." I moved up the stairs slowly, my hand on my service weapon. The house was quiet, except for that sound of that cartoon still playing downstairs. The hallway was dark. 3 doors, 1 open, 2 closed. The open one showed a bathroom, nightlight plugged into the wall. The children's room was the first door on the right. It was cracked open maybe 2 inches. I could hear soft breathing inside, but I also heard something else, something that made my stomach drop. Someone else was breathing in that room. I pushed the door open fast, hit the light switch. A man stood at the foot of the bunk bed, tall, maybe 6'2", wearing dark clothes and a black ski mask. He had a kitchen knife in his right hand, long blade, the kind you use for carving meat. He'd been standing there in the dark, just watching those kids sleep. When the light came on, he didn't run. That's what still gets me. He just turned and looked at me, calm, like I'd interrupted him during something routine. "Drop the knife," I said, weapon drawn. "Drop it now and get on the ground." He tilted his head, studied me, then he looked back at the children, both still sleeping, and I saw his grip tighten on that knife handle. "Don't," I said. "Don't even think about it." Greg was behind me now, his weapon out too. The man must have realized he was cornered because he finally let the knife clatter to the floor. When we cuffed him and pulled off the mask, I didn't recognize him. His face was completely blank. No fear, no anger, nothing. We found a disconnected phone extension in the upstairs hallway closet. He'd been calling from inside the house the entire time, probably before the Pruitts even left. We found evidence he'd been in the attic, food wrappers, a blanket, cigarette butts. He'd been living up there for at least 3 days, coming down at night when the family slept. The children never woke up during any of it. Brooke kept them safe by making that call. She trusted her instincts when something felt wrong, even when it would have been easier to convince herself she was overreacting. The man's name was Walter Finch. He never said why he was there or what he was planning. In interrogation, he just stared at the wall and smiled. Sometimes the worst thing isn't the monster at your door, it's the one already inside waiting for you to stop paying attention. And the scariest part? We still don't know how many other houses he'd done this to before, how many attics he'd hidden in, how many families never knew he was there. He's still in prison, but every Halloween I think about those kids sleeping in that room and how thin the line was between a normal night and something none of us would have recovered from. Check your attics, lock your basement doors, and if something feels wrong, even on Halloween, even if it seems like just a prank, trust that feeling, because sometimes the call is really coming from inside the house. I've been a missing persons investigator for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for 23 years. I've worked cases that ended in relief, cases that ended in heartbreak, and cases where we got some kind of closure, even if it wasn't the kind anyone wanted. But there's one file that sits on my desk differently than the others. October 31st, 2000. A 10-year-old boy named Tyler Brennan, and a house on Ashwood Crescent that shouldn't have been able to swallow someone whole. The call came in at 10:15 p.m. Tyler's mother, Patricia, reported him missing. He'd gone out trick-or-treating at 7:30 with his older sister, Natalie, who was 13. They'd been doing the neighborhood loop together, Natalie walking a few houses ahead with her friends, Tyler trailing behind, proud to be going out without Mom holding his hand for the first time. When I arrived at the Brennan house around 10:45, Patricia was standing on the front lawn in her bathrobe. She wasn't crying, not yet. She was in that stage where your brain hasn't quite accepted what's happening, so you just keep moving, keep talking, like if you stay busy enough, reality will course-correct itself. "He had his pillowcase," she told me, gripping my arm, "the one with the pumpkins on it. He wanted to be a ghost this year, so I cut holes in an old bedsheet. He looked adorable." Her voice caught. "He looked so happy." Natalie sat on the front steps, mascara running down her face. She'd been dressed as a vampire, plastic fangs still in her hand, crushed from squeezing them too hard. "Tell me exactly what happened," I said, sitting down beside her. She took a shaky breath. "We were doing Ashwood Crescent. Tyler was maybe 30 feet behind us. I kept checking back, you know? Mom made me promise to watch him." Her voice went hollow. "I watched him walk up to 1847. It's this old brick house with the big oak tree in front. I saw him climb the steps. I saw him knock." "Then what?" "The door opened. I looked away for maybe 10 seconds. My friend Zoe was showing me her candy. And when I looked back, the door was closed. Tyler was gone." She started shaking. "I thought he went inside. Sometimes people invite you in to pick from a bowl or whatever, so we kept going to a few more houses, then circled back, but he never came out." I stood up. "Show me the house." We walked 3 blocks to Ashwood Crescent. It was quieter now. Most of the trick-or-treaters had gone home. Orange lights still glowed in windows. Carved pumpkins lined porches. But 1847 was dark. The house was older than the others on the street. Brick facade, narrow windows, overgrown hedges. The oak tree in the front yard was massive, its branches reaching toward the house like fingers. There was no porch light on, no decorations, nothing to suggest anyone was home or had been handing out candy. I knocked, waited, knocked again, harder this time. Nothing. "Did you see who opened the door?" I asked Natalie. "Just a shape. The porch light wasn't on, so it was dark. I think it was a man, tall maybe. I don't know." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I should have been watching closer." By midnight, we had a dozen officers canvassing the neighborhood. We knocked on every door within a 4-block radius. Most people had been handing out candy earlier, but saw nothing unusual. A few remembered seeing a kid in a ghost costume walking alone. Nobody remembered seeing him after he knocked on that door. The house at 1847 belonged to a man named Irving Kowalski, 67 years old, retired factory worker, lived alone, According to neighbors, he kept to himself, didn't decorate for holidays, rarely left the house except for groceries. A few people mentioned he seemed off, but couldn't explain what they meant by that. Just a feeling. We got a warrant and entered the house at 3:30 a.m. The inside was neat. Too neat. The kind of clean that feels deliberate, like someone had gone through and removed any trace of themselves. The furniture was old but well-maintained. Doilies on the side tables, a television from the 70s, no photographs on the walls, no personal items, just the shell of a house with someone living in it. We searched every room, every closet, the attic, the basement. We pulled up floorboards. We checked the backyard, brought in cadaver dogs, ground-penetrating radar. We turned that house inside out. Tyler Brennan wasn't there. No signs of struggle, no blood, no evidence a child had been in that house at all. The only thing we found was a half-empty bowl of candy on the kitchen counter, mini chocolate bars, still in their wrappers, and a bedsheet folded neatly on the basement washing machine, white, with 2 eye holes cut into it. Irving Kowalski never came home. We issued alerts, checked bus stations, airports, border crossings. His car was still in the driveway. His wallet was still on the dresser. He'd simply vanished, same as Tyler. For months, we chased leads. Tips came in. People claimed they saw Tyler in other cities, other provinces. Every single one turned out to be nothing. We interviewed Irving's family members, old coworkers, anyone who'd ever known him. Nobody could tell us why he'd leave. Nobody could tell us what happened that night. The house sat empty for years. Eventually, the city seized it for back taxes and demolished it. But before they did, I went back one last time. Walked through those rooms in the daylight, trying to feel something, see something we'd missed. I stood in the entryway where Tyler would have stood when that door opened. I tried to imagine what he saw, who he saw, what made him step inside, or if he ever stepped inside at all. The house gave me nothing, just silence and dust, and the weight of questions that don't have answers. Patricia Brennan still lives on Elmwood Drive. Every Halloween, she leaves the porch light off. She hasn't handed out candy since 2000. Natalie moved away after high school. I heard she lives out west now, works as a teacher. She doesn't come back for holidays anymore. The case is still open. It'll stay open until we find Tyler or find out what happened to him. But after 24 years, I know the odds. I know what it means when someone vanishes this completely. Here's what keeps me up at night. The physics of it. A child walks up to a door. The door opens. The child is gone. No screams, no witnesses, nothing. It's like the house inhaled someone and then exhaled emptiness. I've worked abductions before. They're violent, messy, panicked. Someone sees something, someone hears something. Evidence gets left behind because people make mistakes when they're scared or rushing. But this was something else. This was a door opening and a child stepping through into nothing. Sometimes I wonder if Irving Kowalski planned it, if he'd been watching the neighborhood, waiting for Halloween, waiting for a kid alone. Other times I wonder if he was a victim too, if something else happened in that house, something that took them both. The truth is, I don't know, and that's what makes this case different from all the others. There's no thread to pull, no next step to take, just a ghost costume and an open door, and the space where a 10-year-old boy used to be. Check who's handing out candy in your neighborhood, know your neighbors, and if your kids are out there on Halloween, don't let them out of your sight, not even for 10 seconds. Because sometimes people don't disappear into thin air. Sometimes they disappear into houses that look just like all the others. And sometimes those houses keep their secrets.